There's a smart new website that will change the way you invest using social media.
LikeFolio.
Here to explain,
A team of brothers, Andy and Landon Swan.
of LikeFolio.
And they've always been building out great technology at the intersection of social and trading.
Powered by unique social data, analyzed by legendary traders. The LikeFolio broadcast starts right now.
Nick, I'm going to bring this in with a little did you know? I was on the Ameritrade social signals tab and I saw this one.
Okay.
Coca-Cola produces so many different products that if you were to drink one each day, it would take you 9 years to try them all.
Damn.
That was brought to us by at Land of Facts. And again, I found that on the social signals tab of TD Ameritrade. Pretty crazy.
9 years to drink.
9 years.
You could drink one product per day?
Yes. Now that includes all the variants of every product. So High C's got like probably 20 different flavors. They've got like 500 brands and 3,500 different types, I guess, flavors or whatever you want to call them.
That's nuts.
That is nuts.
That's a serious brand. That's some serious management that's required for the manufacturing process.
It is. That's crazy.
Well, these guys got it down to a science. I mean, they are not messing around.
No, so we're talking about Coke today, Coca-Cola, KO. And this is kind of one of my old favorites. I mean, I've been a Coke guy forever. Kind of moved away from beverages, sugary stuff, and definitely the diet stuff. My wife's got me on more of a health kick lately, but for most of my life, I was a Coke guy. Were you a Coke or a Pepsi guy?
I was kind of mixed. There were some Coke products in the mix. There were some Pepsi products in the mix. I remember, I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 1980. I remember Max Headroom or something like that.
I forgot about that guy.
Wasn't he Pepsi? Or was he Coke?
I don't know.
That campaign must have worked great.
The computer guy, right?
Yeah, I remember him. I just don't remember what the campaign was. But I do remember
Feels like Pepsi.
A Pepsi campaign where they had 4 different cans. There was one that was like black with like neon symbols. There was one that was like the American flag can. Mm-hmm. So there was 4 cans and they all had different designs on them. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
I think I was maybe like 10. Or maybe
Pepsi was
11.
I feel like Pepsi's a younger person's game.
I feel like their marketing is strong. I remember the Britney Spears campaign getting all kinds of media because of how much money they paid her. But in turn, that makes me remember it. And I don't know. There's not a whole lot of memorable Coke stuff except for the polar bears and just the brand recognition. Of course,
they spend a ridiculous amount on advertising. They spend almost $3 billion a year on advertising. And that is more, if you put that in comparison, Microsoft's about $1.5 billion. Apple is about 700 million. So they're more than both of those combined and then some.
You know what? I just remembered one. Do you remember, I think I was about 12. So it would be like 1992. They had this thing where you could open up a Coke can and money would come up.
What?
Yeah. So most of the Cokes you opened up, obviously, it was just Coke. But they had these like chamber of like a $5, because I remember my friend won $5. He opened the can and a $5 bill wrapped up came, popped out of the can. But you couldn't like go around and shake cans and see if there was liquid in there or not because they had liquid at the bottom. So the weight was still the same. There was still liquid feel. You couldn't tell by like squeezing or shaking.
That's pretty cool. It's an interesting campaign.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
That'd been crazy. That was memorable.
I guarantee there was somebody who got money and was disappointed because they were really thirsty and that was their last one. Like,
damn, I really wanted a Coke right now. The vending machine's out. It's hot. I'm thirsty.
So from your point of view, when you're looking at the charts, what do you see with Coke?
So, I was looking at this and, I tend to focus on looking at 1-year charts and kind of zooming out from there. The thing that really caught my eye right away on the 1-year chart is strong resistance right at 44, pretty much on the nose.
Which is where we're at now. We closed right at 44 today.
Closed at 44.01. And when I say at 44, I mean, within a few cents margin of error. We don't look for specific price points and call that exact resistance.
Right.
We say, around this area, or I say.
It used to be able to do that when there was, eighths and teenies and
exactly.
16ths, but now a penny, whatever.
Totally different ballgame.
Totally different.
So in this case, let's just call it the 44 area. It's tested it several times here and just can't seem to break through it yet, but it does have a pretty nice 2016 uptrend going into it this time. It's knocking at the door, and you know what they say, the more it knocks at the door, the weaker that resistance area gets, the more probability is that it's going to break through it. Same goes for support, but in this case, we're looking at resistance.
Now, is there any saying or history on the longer it battles up against that resistance, what that means as far as when it does break? Is it a faster, larger break, or is it just more likely to get through?
Just more likely to get through.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an interesting observation here. The implied volatility has been creeping lower all the while. So I think there's a lot of complacency at these levels. That, you know, when you put those two together, there may be a break coming up soon here in KO.
Gotcha. And this is a little different kind of a company. I mean, you mentioned something about the dividends that they pay out. Tell people that is crazy.
It's pretty impressive. First of all, I just want to mention it's a 0.58 beta. We've touched on beta on the show before. So we're talking about a very, non-volatile stock here.
And dividend is why, right?
Yeah, the dividend is 3.2% dividend yield. So if you put that in terms of what they pay out to shareholders, they pay out 78% to the shareholders, and then the rest they retain to themselves. That's incredible. So
that really is incredible.
That's an extremely high payout to shareholders.
And they're doing well. They're worth $190 billion, pulling in 44 in revenue and turning that into 7 in income. So their margins are actually pretty decent for making sugar water.
No doubt.
Right. But the advertising and all the enormous stuff that they have to do it's awesome that they can pay out that kind of dividend, which of course, like you said, turns out that very, very low beta, which means that if the market goes up 100 or goes up 10%, then that stock's going to go up about 5.5%, 6%, somewhere in there, generally speaking.
Correct. Yeah, and the company's worth $190 billion. We're not talking about a tiny guy here.
Right. And one other interesting fact, this was, I saw this from StockTwits. They put out something that shows that Berkshire Hathaway, this is Coca-Cola is their second largest company that they hold.
Yeah, Warren Buffett has been a long time fan of Coca-Cola.
Right. So I feel like if he's willing to put that as his second largest holding, it's got to be a decent company, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So let's take a look at the data since we've got the technical look at it, uptrending into 44. That's just been kind of holding it back. Even today, it's right there. So it could break out anytime, could be this week. When we go back and look at the LikeFolio data, one of the things that kind of jumps out at me is, and we don't talk about this a lot, the cash tags, but the cash tag sentiment is around 60% positive, which sounds low, but that's actually pretty high for a lot of for most companies. It's around 50%, and to be at 60% is actually pretty high. So that worries me just a little bit because that's an inverse one.
Exactly.
So that means that more people are long, or they've already bought, or they already have covered. Than are short. Now, it's not extreme. It's not 80 or 90%, so it's not like crazy. But the fact that it's above 50% just makes me be a little cautious. But then when we look at the brand mentions and purchase intent and consumer sentiment, we noticed that brand mentions had been pretty flat for the time that we track. All of our data goes back to 2012. However, around first quarter 2015, it started uptrending and has continued to uptrend since then. Even in the last quarter or so, it's still uptrending. That's brand mention. So that's anytime someone mentions any product that they have. Purchase intent
just
goes...
to touch on product that they have, and we're talking about, you already mentioned it when we opened up the show, but we're talking about, of course, Coca-Cola. We got Powerade, Dasani water, Minute Maid, Simply like orange and Simply lemonade, all that stuff. Sprite, Fanta.
Mm-hmm. They've got so many, and so many that you've heard of. It's mostly beverages. I think that, they do a lot of other stuff, but they're more focused on beverages than, for example, Pepsi. But it is. It's not just saying Coca-Cola or Diet Coke or something like that on Twitter. It's any one of these. We're tracking all of those. And so, the LikeFolio database is obviously very huge, but we do track anytime anyone mentions any brand or product of these companies.
And speaking of brand, not to just go away from the data, but the loyalty is crazy.
Right. Like
especially like the old collectible memorabilia for Coca-Cola. People go nuts. The value on those collectibles just goes up and up and up. Like you see that show American Pickers and American Restoration.
Oh yeah.
They want to pick these Coca-Cola signs and everybody wants to restore these Coca-Cola vending machines and refrigerators. And
oh yeah.
It's crazy.
My aunt was big into that. She was a big Coke person, and I mean, you don't bring Pepsi into that house. It's just you sit on the Coke bar stool and you look at the old Coke restored sign, and it's cool. It's nostalgic. You're right.
Yeah, and I've got this tweet from this guy at Yoshi1Up. He's clearly an Intel employee. He says, all this Coca-Cola in the vending machine, but no vanilla Coke. Seriously, nightmare mode for 8 years at Intel. So, I mean, this guy he's just completely losing his mind.
Get that guy some vanilla Coke. Come on, Intel.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sorry, I didn't mean to pull you away from the data there.
No problem. Back to it. I was talking about how the brand mentions have been uptrending since first quarter of 15, so about a year now. Purchase intent has gone right along with it. And so, again, uptrending since around the first quarter of 2015. Sentiment has actually gone up quite a bit since that same period. I think sentiment is probably just more volatile, probably has a higher beta than brand mentions. But it's around 85% positive right now, which is lower than I would think for a company like Coca-Cola. Seems like you'd have most people loving it, not really bashing it, but that's where it's at right now. Overall, I would say that the data is pointing bullish. It's been tracking the stock pretty well. And the fact that it's been uptrending over this last year, combine that with the fact that the stock has been going up for the last year, but it's hitting a ceiling. I kind of like that. So we're seeing a little bit of a divergence from the data and the stock price. And it's all because of this technical resistance that doesn't necessarily have any bearing on what could be in the stock. So you've got the data going up, the stock going up, and then the data continues to go up, but then the stock levels off at this 44. And so I kind of like the breakout play.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about the fact that the stock exactly a year ago was right at $40 and right now it's at 44. We're not talking about any serious up moves here.
Right.
While this data has been uptrending.
Yeah, the data is definitely up more than 10% year over year.
When did the uptrend start?
It started, it looks like about in April.
And the uptrend's primarily in brand mentions and purchase intent?
Yes. The sentiment started around the new year of 2015. That uptrend started a little earlier. It kind of led the brand mentions, I guess. But purchase intent and brand mentions have been going on since around the first quarter, so March or April of 2015.
Okay. That's interesting. So how strongly do you think this data implies that we may get a break through this resistance?
Well, I tell you that these levels, we haven't had this high of brand mentions or purchase intent in Coca-Cola in the 4 years that we've been tracking the stock. So I think that should correlate to a 4-year high. And it hasn't yet. I mean, we're right there. We're at resistance. There. So I would think that if this data holds water, we're going to see a breakthrough of 44.
Great. Well, now that I've heard that, I'm considering something I don't normally do from a trade perspective. The reason I'm considering this is because the data's pretty strongly bullish and the stock really hasn't done anything over the past couple years. They pay a great dividend, but the price hasn't done much.
Right.
The implied volatility is almost at 52-week lows here. We're looking at a 15% implied volatility, which, we've talked about stocks like Tesla and whatnot. Some of these stocks we're talking about have 100, 120% implied volatility.
You can't wait to get in there and sell that premium.
Yeah.
But
this is 15%.
Totally different.
So I'm not really interested in selling premium here, which means, of course, I'd be a buyer of premium.
Mm-hmm.
I really never outright buy calls, but this volatility or this implied volatility premium is just so cheap. I'm looking at the August 2016.
Are you going way out?
Yeah, 45 calls. I just want to give the data a little time to
That's probably
come to fruition.
Sure.
I'm a duration guy.
You're thinking about that Nordstrom trade still, aren't you?
Yeah.
Where we nailed it, but we were like 2 days early. Yeah. Okay.
So this has 165 days left till expiration. The 45 calls can be purchased for 99 cents. So let's just call it $1.
Dang, that is not
It's
bad.
cheap, man. It's cheap.
That is. It's like it's on sale.
And if we get this breakout through 44, it could run to 50 easy, in my opinion. And then those 45 calls have $5 of intrinsic value plus 100 and however many days left of extrinsic value.
Right. Which it's not going to be a lot because if it's only worth $1 now.
You're right.
But still, the fact that it's only $1, that's nice.
Yeah. So a couple of things could happen here. If we get a quick breakout to the upside, then of course we get that nice intrinsic value add to those options, and you could get 5x if it goes up to 50. That's a great trade right there. Absolutely great trade.
Sure.
The implied volatility premium could start upticking a bit
because it can't really go down, right? I mean, what would Coke have to do in order for implied volatility to go down? It would have to be pretty much just flat. Like maybe they increase their dividend or something. I mean, what can it do to go down from there?
I mean, it could continue to trickle higher. I feel like if it broke through this resistance, there would be an initial uptick in volatility, which is a little bit counterintuitive. But
that makes sense.
Yeah. So people might be saying, you know what, I have a little fear here of, how volatile this is going to be now that it's broken through this resistance level. Are we going to get some crazy upside moves? Are we going to get some crazy downside moves? I don't know. So let's just uptick the implied volatility here a little bit. Cool. So I could see that happening.
So you like the August 45s for $1. So you put in $100, see if it could be worth 500. Really? I mean, that's totally reasonable to think that it could go from 45 to 50.
You have 165 days for that to take place.
You're just chilling.
They're cheap, man. And normally, like I said, I'd never normally just outright buy puts or calls. But in this particular instance.
But you're not stubborn. You look at the numbers and you're like, well, this is cheap. That's funny because I was looking at something similar in that I saw that the extrinsic value was very low, and I was looking at the May options because their next earnings is in late April. And so I wanted to make sure I got that next earnings call in. And I was looking at a spread, a bullish spread with the buying the 43s and selling the 45s. And it's basically costs $1. It's like $1.02, and the stock's at 44.01. So you're basically buying the stock, but you can only go up or down $1. That's
funny because if I show you here, the other trade I had loaded is the 42.45 April. So we were exactly the same, except you had the 43.45. I went a little wider. I did a 3-point wide.
Now I'm doing May because their earnings.
You did May. Okay.
But the earnings is after expiration in April. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I got that
through the earnings cycle.
But yeah, we're doing the same trade. But you know what? Your August one it's sexier because with mine I put in $100 and I could lose 100, make 100 within 3 months. But yours, you put in 100 and the sky's the limit. I mean, it's not going to go up to 57 or 60 or 80 or anything crazy like that. Doubtful. But you can make a lot more than you put in.
I really think there's a lot to psychological price points. And if we get through the psychology of breaking through this 44 resistance, 50 is such a huge magnet. It's just like a psychological magnet price point. I could easily see it going there.
I like yours, but I'm throwing mine out. I'm glad we talked about this before because I was ready to pull the trigger. I really liked that trade. But yours has so much more upside potential
and more duration.
It does. Yeah. I thought mine had a lot of duration going to May, but you're beating me on all fronts, Nick.
Hey man. It's a good trade. That's why we talk this stuff out.
So I'm buying the August 45.
August 45 calls for currently 99 cents. We'll just call it $1.
That's fantastic. I'm just going to put $100 in that, maybe 2, probably 100, and just let it sit. Maybe make $400 or $500 because I don't think about Coke a lot. I don't trade Coke. It's not on my radar. But when we brought this up, it just looks so positive, and I love to just have an extra position sitting out there, have a little fun with it.
Yeah, I'll put at least 10 on because I have a rule that I can't put less than 10 contracts on at any time.
Really?
Yeah.
So it has to be $1,000.
But I mean, I'm a trader, and this is kind of a big source of my income here.
That's true.
So I have to go a little bit bigger, but 10 it still isn't big from a percentage of the portfolio perspective. I'm with you on I don't want too much exposure in Coke because I don't follow it. It's kind of a boring stock. But this opportunity is good enough to where I have to at least put 10 on.
All right. Cool. I'm going to try to beat you in so I get a better fill.
I like it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you haven't gotten the app, get it in the App Store, LikeFolio, or you can listen to us on SoundCloud. And appreciate you coming in with us today, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.